Today, we are very privileged to welcome Rod Eustaquio. Hopefully, I pronounced it right, Rod, to the Tales of TIC podcast. Rod, welcome.
Glad to have me. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, just as an introduction, I suppose, to yourself, so Rod is the owner of Iris Environmental Laboratories. They're an environmental testing and inspection business based in New Jersey. So, Rod, I suppose to kick things off, you actually came to the US from Brazil around 10 years ago, but correct me if I'm wrong. And fast forward to now, you're obviously the owner of a successful environmental testing lab. Can you just tell us all, I suppose, about your story and how you actually stumbled into the TIC sector?
Sure. I think my story is a kind of a mix of a few twists and turns. My family have been living here for over 30 years, and I have a. My brother came earlier when he was 10, and stayed in Brazil, and I grew up there, and I did engineer at the beginning. I dropped out, and then I went to law school. And at some point in my life, when I had my children, in between back and forth, coming to the U.S. and visiting my family and being in Brazil, I decided to uh, come to the U.S., continue my law practice. But life makes a change. At one point, I was looking for my validation of my attorney license, and my brother used to have inspection company, and I started work with him before I have my foot on the ground and adjusted in the U.S. And this is what came about. I mean, at one point, I was accepted in law school to validate what I needed to get my license in the U.S. And an opportunity came while I was working with my brother that laboratory was listed for sale. So in one day, I was just driving, going to inspections, and we had a very serious conversation. And he said, "Why don't we buy this company and we make it grow and we make something different?" And a few months later, we were kind of talking to the seller, and I got accepted in Law Brooklyn School, and I had two options on my table. Okay, go into my legal career, what I was doing almost 15 years, or do this lab entrepreneurship
Yeah.
and go with on this path. So I gave it a thought about a week and said, screw it, let's make this lab grow and let just my legal career to the past. And that's how everything started. So in a way, I although I dropped engineer at some point, I think it's very beneficial for the laboratory and also on the legal background perspective. Uh, Everything about laboratories is standard procedures, documentation, and compliance. So I had, a set of skills that could really set the ground for the laboratory. So everything connected at some point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask because obviously, coming from engineering and a legal career, I mean, it's, I suppose, non conventional or non traditional when we look at the wider TIC sector. So, I mean, you touched on it there, but I mean, apart from maybe the documentation, I think, um, and what else you mentioned, I mean, how do you think this sort of non-scientific background or initial path has actually aided you in the sector? Maybe your way of thinking when it comes to approaches in the lab.
Well, there is a very technical aspect in the lab, and I rely on really sterile. I think scientists I have here. I have a really good team working in the lab, and I rely on things that I don't understand. But ultimately, a laboratory is a business. I always had that entrepreneurial vein in my way of conducting things. Even when I was dealing with law, a firm was always something that I consider as a business. So it wasn't hard. So while I take care of the business when we're talking about the laboratory and all the documentation and compliance that entails my legal background, and I think everything falls in one piece. My brother also is a very important piece because I like to joke. While I'm GPS, I work strategically. I work with formality, all the paperwork, standard procedures that entails the lab, and the conversations that I have with government, and things of that nature. So I keep the strategy part. My brother is the one that pushed the gas. So I like to joke that I'm the GPS and he's the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes all the way the path, but also I lead where he goes with the strategic part. And in that way, we complement each other. And I think nothing would happen if he wasn't already in this business doing inspections and had all the history of using laboratories in the environmental field.
Well, it's perfect, isn't it? Yeah, you said it there. I mean, both your skill sets sort of complement each other well, and it helps run the business, which is nice. Yeah, I didn't touch on it. Obviously, you had the entrepreneurial background through, I think, franchising, etc. I mean, hindsight's obviously 2020, but do you wish you'd actually explored a career in TIC or laboratory ownership sooner, maybe?
Well, I don't know. I never thought about being in the tech industry. I was a classic attorney, corp attorney helping companies, but also I consulted with franchises. I had a few franchisors under the firm.
Hmm.
And, you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I dealt with some companies that dealt with also environmental industry, but I never thought myself be positioned into one
Yeah.
like I am now. It's kind of a destiny came into just an encounter with me, but I never thought about it. If I would have before, I think I would have more time to grow the company, but I think it was a perfect timing. I wouldn't choose better timing. Everything, fit the bill at the moment that I was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, it's hindsight. You can never look back and say, "Oh, I wish I did." But yeah, it would have been interesting to see sort of how the business may have changed if you'd gone in sooner, or even if you had the lab you did, or even actually settled on the name. So we joked about it, but I always like to ask everyone, where did the
Mhm.
actual name Iris come from when naming the facility?
Yeah, Iris. It's not like a fancy name, or there's a really a significance per se, but in a way, the story itself creates a significance.
Yeah.
But I remember when we started this, I applied for law in New York. And when I came to the US, I was still adjusting, learning the language, and I was working with my brother just to put my feet on the ground. So we're doing inspections everywhere in New Jersey. Um, and then a laboratory was listed for sale, and we came to the conversation that I said. I mean, okay, let's put the legal background aside, the legal pursuit aside, and let's work with buying this lab and make it grow. It was one feat because in a way I would get connected with my family. I was able to work with my brother, so we're straighten our relationship. When we decided to buy the laboratory, we were dealing with the bank because we didn't have the whole money to buy the lab. It was a small lab, but we didn't have the funds from pocket.
Sure.
And we got a phone, and before getting the phone, my brother had a company called Bioterra Environmental Solutions, and the idea was just buy the lab and put everything under the same name. So we got a phone call from a banker, and they said, "No, you guys are not buying a company. You guys are buying a group of assets, and you have to create a totally brand new company." So I look at my brother and say, "What name we're going to choose for this company?" And we came from inspection. We just bought lunch and we sat down in the kitchen and we have a bunch of samples in the kitchen all over the place. We had around like 200 samples that we need to submit to another lab. And I said, let's come up with the names. So we put the list together. I remember we had 10 names lined up. I wish I could have that list. I never found that list again.
Yeah.
I would have framed it if I have today. But and then I think I send this to a bunch of people that we know and say, hey, choose just a name, pick a name of these 10 names that we listed out. And Iris stood out, and we just went with Iris, and that's how the name came about it. And Iris, when we thought about putting it on the list, it's a piece of the microscope. It's a part of the optical structure of a microscope in a lab. And some people might say that, oh, it's a your daughter, your cousin, or whatever, your wife. But no, there's nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with the family, just to do with the because yeah, I thought it was something maybe to do with the eye, obviously the iris, or yeah, as I said maybe family, but it obviously stands out. It's a distinct name, so it's. I'm glad you
Yeah,
came into it
some people ask it has to do with flour, and what we thought it's okay. It's an optical name of a part of the microscope, but also it's in the eye, so it's something to do with laboratory and an optical system to see samples. That's the idea we listed the name about it,
anyway. Well,
and
it sticks
also it
anyway.
sounds sweet too, sounds smooth.
Yeah, it does. If anyone asks, you can say it's a family member's name. You can
There you
switch it
go.
up, switch the story. Well, I said it sticks. It's in the name. It's in the mind anyway. It sticks out. So, I mean, yeah. Obviously, with Iris, great name. Obviously, great track record as well. So, over the last 10 years, you've managed to actually grow Iris considerably since you bought the lab. As I mentioned, maybe I mentioned initially, you've got both aspects, the testing part and the inspection parts of the business. How do you actually believe you were able to achieve the success over the last 10 years and really scale the business from, conception?
That's a good question. I think a combination of things. We wouldn't be able to do it if my we were me and my when I say we, my brother and I were so complementary with the set of skills. He's very field oriented and he's very gregarious, meaning he doesn't have any problem pounding on doors and making connections, network while he's doing his inspections. Today he doesn't do as much. We have inspectors to do the work, um, but he has a very strong suit to develop the field and inspection.
Mhm.
On the other side. I have a very kind of compliance SOPs and very strategic mind in terms of growing, expanding, and organize how things are flowing inside the company. And with that skills that we have, um, the first thing that we put together, it's okay. We're going to line up all the things that is going wrong, and we're going to create a streamline that we can be able to scale. The I think the most challenging encounter that we had when we see the laboratory and inspection together, it's how we can connect both activities in one, create a perfect streamline, and put everybody together on the same board, and you don't lose information, you don't lose data points.
Mhm.
Uh, and how that resonates with customers. First, I think it's create a channel that it's easy for customers to speak with. The second thing is have access, different channels access, and a good brand that support all these signals that we want to put to the customer. And of course, this is a time crunch industry.
Yeah.
You have to do the job fast in and out and give solutions to customer. So all that translates and wrap up into the brand, and we make it easy for create solutions for customers. So when we had that mindset, everything we put together, it's in a way that the team is on the same page. Everybody communicate and resonate the same communication to the customers, and customers also find easy to access the company in terms of communication, response, and documentation. Putting all these in a basket, we started naturally standing out organically and get good reviews, and from that point on it's just a matter of tweaking and always perfectionize what the mistakes that we encounter along the process. And I think that's how our main core of business and how we grew doing things.
No, it's some great points actually. I think that the brand piece is obviously huge. Getting your name out there, but also the reputation. So when you look at successful labs, a lot of the time, yes, price does come into it, but it's also reputation in the market through its turnaround time and speed. So the fact those are things you look at, obviously, it's very I think pivotal, especially when you're growing to become a 2, 3, 4 million lab. I'm curious, obviously, with the company now being heavily involved in asbestos, lead, mold testing. Where do you see maybe the future of Iris Lab? Expanding from 3 million lab to 10 million plus. Do you think it's going into conventional testing, so air, water, soil that we see with a lot of the TIC players now, or do you think it's maybe expanded into new locations?
Yeah, we try out many ways to scale. Today we cover New York, New Jersey, sometimes Connecticut, and we go frequently to Pennsylvania. To 2020, we decided to franchise the inspection business, and at some point we had 10 locations. Uh, we had the farthest was Texas.
Wow.
Um, but it's a different franchise is a totally different from a tech business. It's a different level of business. It's a different characteristic of business, and in a way, we kind of took the focus from the lab and the inspection business, the environmental knowledge, and we started getting too much attention to the franchise.
Yeah.
So at some point, we have to make a choice. Okay, are we a franchise business or we are a tech business and conduct environmental business? So 2025, we decided to pause the franchise. We still have franchise locations, but we are not working with franchise. And the idea at the time, the franchise is not the lab, the franchise is the inspection concept.
Yeah.
So it was deploy franchisees with inspection capabilities to feed the lab. We still have that idea on the inspection side. I'm sorry, on the inspection side of recruiting inspectors throughout the state, and we already map out the regulation and see how we can accommodate that, and we're still that in development. In the lab, we have national accreditations, and we're expanding into wet chemistry, water analysis, drinking water and waste water management, and industrial hygiene. It's a slow process. It's not like we're going to throw $1 to $2 million and do like a huge and aggressive development.
Yeah.
We always grow organically, but we're growing little by little, and that's the idea and the core foundation here. Always expand in a very sustainable way.
No, it's quite an interesting point. Different companies have different models. They have acquisition models where they like to acquire other businesses, tag them in, and grow. I spoke to Dan at Bureau Veritas, who heads up their industrial hygiene sales, and he was talking about maximizing what you've got and sort of then maybe looking to add new locations in. So I think the services of wet chemistry, drinking water, I mean, they're massive, specifically in the New Jersey Northeast area, but then even in the West Coast in California. So I think it certainly gives you a great platform to kick on the laboratory side of the business, as you mentioned. So no, I'll be very interested to see sort of how the business develops over the next few years, Rod, and see where you've got into, how big the lab's got, and who knows what's next for the company, I guess.
Absolutely, that's the plan.
Yeah. So I said we'll all be watching. I mean, if people weren't familiar with the business before, I'm sure there will be now, and they'll be looking at both sides. Inspection, the lab testing, and I said we're all keen to see sort of where the lab progresses to.
Yeah, I think it's a good combination because if you have a broad set of analysis that the lab can do, automatically that gives freedom also for the inspection to be offered to the customer. So you have two ways of expanding.
Exactly. So as I said, it's an exciting prospect. I can't wait to see where the company, goes to. And likewise, yourself, I mean, in the next 10, 20 years, whether you're back in law or the business is massive, we'll see. But no, honestly, an absolute pleasure hearing your thoughts, learning more about the business, even your route into the TIC industry, which I know a lot of people coming through college or those that are already in the business, in the industry, sorry, are always keen to see where others have come from. So, no, it was great hearing your thoughts, Rod, and I do appreciate your time today as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you, Rod. All the best.